Hey everybody, welcome to the video. So I'm breaking down the Thursday Night Football Showdown slate between the undefeated Arizona Cardinals and the Green Bay Packers, and what should be a pretty exciting game. I'm definitely looking forward to a lot more than I was looking forward to watching the Monday night game between the Saints and the Seahawks. So we have Kyler Murray versus Aaron Rodgers, two of the most exciting quarterbacks in all football. Lots of good offensive pieces on both sides here. Unfortunately for the Packers, though, it's looking like Devontae Adams and Allen Lazard are not going to be able to suit up tonight due to COVID protocols. That's not yet confirmed, but by the time you're watching this video, maybe it is. And if it is, we have a lot of value on receiver for the Packers side of the ball, which makes this slate pretty interesting, but it's definitely a fun one to break down. I'm looking forward to it. And if you do find this video helpful in any way possible, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. If you want to take that one step further, become an official member over on Patreon. Link is down below in the description for that. Since we're close to the end of the month, if you do want to sign up, I can refund this last week or a couple days for you for free, as long as you do say sign up on November 1st. If you want to check it out, optimizers for all sports, NBA, NFL, NASCAR, and MLB when that starts back up again outside of the World Series. So if you want to check it out, link is down below for that. And last but not least, this video is sponsored by PrizePicks. I'm sure most of you know what it is by now, but if you don't, it's daily fantasy sports simplified, just you versus the projections. There's no sharks, 150 max contests, or salary cap restrictions, or anything like that. Just you versus the props they offer each and every single day. And as of right now, if you're new signing over on PrizePicks, you get a free money bonus. That's an instant deposit match up to $100, so it's free money when it's to your advantage. When you use code CPEN and tell them I sent you, and you can find some really soft lines there throughout the week, like last weekend. Chris Godwin over 60 receiving yards, DeAndre Swift over 33. It's like they were giving out free money. So if you want to check it out, you know where to find it. But I think that's it for the plugs for the most part. So without further ado, let's dive into today's video. And as always, we'll start with the quarterback position. And really, to be honest, I want to play a lot of both of these quarterbacks. I realize Aaron Rodgers is down a couple of options, but it's still Aaron Rodgers. He can make things work with most wide receivers, even though without Devontae Adams, it's definitely a big hit to him. But we'll start with Kyler Murray here up first. Both these guys are quite expensive, but like I said, if Devontae Adams and Allen Lazard are both out, which it sounds like it's pretty much a given at this point, we have a lot of value wide receiver on the Packers side of the ball, so we're going to be able to make pretty much most of the lineups that we want on this slate. Salary shouldn't be too much of an issue as long as you use a couple of those value guys. So we'll start top here with Murray. He's the guy you're going to want the most on this slate. He's my highest projected player, and I realize $12,000 is a quite expensive price point, but it's not that hard to jam him in. Now, the question is if you not if you want to play him or not, because yeah, you want to play Kyler Murray. It's just a question of how much do you want to play him in the captain spot. Personally, for me, as I always say, I usually try to limit my quarterbacks for anywhere around 5 to 10%, 5 to 15%, depending on the slate in the captain spot. But if it's a rushing quarterback, which Kyler Murray is not the biggest rushing quarterback out there, but he definitely has rushing touchdown upside with around 20 rushing yards per game on average, which is not anything too high like Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts or anything, but the rushing touchdowns are definitely there for Kyler Murray. So when that's the case, kind of like Josh Allen, he can run the ball a bit. I usually try to push that up a little bit, maybe like the 20, 25%, sometimes even 30% on the slate. I think there's a lot of good players on the slate, though, so I don't think I'm going to go too heavy on like 30%. Like on Monday night, I went like 60 to 70% Alvin Kamara in the captain spot just because he was far and away the best player on the slate. So as for Kyler Murray, I think we could push him into the 20s for a captain. If you guys are putting 150 lineups, that's what I'm probably going to do in the optimizer. If you guys want to go under weight on that and use one of the pass catching options, just be more of a weight on a guy like DeAndre Hopkins or Christian Kirk or maybe even Aaron Jones or even Aaron Rodgers if you want to. That's totally fine. I'm just saying I'll probably be pushing it a bit on Kyler Murray for my captain spot just because he's a different kind of quarterback than, say, a guy like Tom Brady or Matthew Stafford who just doesn't really run the ball too much and relies on their arm for the majority of the game. Now, I'm not saying Kyler Murray is like the best rushing quarterback out there in terms of yards. 18 rushing yards per game this season, but nearly a half a rushing touchdown per game. And the Packers defense a little bit softer than the Cardinals so far this season. 19th DVA versus the pass, and pretty much a mid-pack when it comes to fantasy points allowed per game to the position. He's got great weapons to get the ball to. He's been fine as a passer this season, averaging just under 300 passing yards per game, nearly 2.5 passing touchdowns. Pretty much the MVP favorite at this point. He's got this offense cooking, 20.5 point implied team total. Playing at home, no reason not to like Kyler Murray here. Then Aaron Rodgers, $11,400. I do like Aaron Rodgers. I just don't like him quite as much as Kyler Murray, especially without two of his top wide receivers, especially Devontae Adams, one of the best wide receivers, if not the best wide receiver in football. It's definitely a big hit to Rodgers, but he can make things work. He's been doing that his whole career. He can run the ball a little bit around the goal line. He's always a threat for a rushing touchdown, not quite on Kyler Murray's level, but he's an athletic enough quarterback to make things work on the ground a little bit. But $11,400, the price is a bit steep. I think he's a better flex play than captain play on this. Like, I'd much rather captain Kyler Murray, to be honest. And as far as Aaron Rodgers goes, for my captain exposure, I don't think I'd have more than like 10 to 15% on this slate. But I think that's probably a decent range to be in just because it's Aaron Rodgers. And this should be a pretty high-scoring game, 15.5 point over-under, 6.5 point dog on the road. They should be throwing the ball quite a bit. I realize not having your top options is going to hurt that a bit, but Aaron Rodgers should be fine. The matchup kind of tough here. Cardinals are second DVA versus the pass and allowing the second fewest points per game to the quarterback position. They did play Davis Mills in a torn labrum Baker Mayfield the past 2 weeks. Not saying their defense isn't good. I'm just saying the past 2 weeks have not been the toughest of matchups out there. So moving over to our lineup, I'm going to plug in both quarterbacks. I'm going to put Kyler Murray in the captain spot. That's probably the best way to go for cash games. If you wanted to spend down, I would say maybe use like a Randall Cobb, just if you want to fit in all the studs in the flex spot. But I think for cash games, as of right now, my mind might change tomorrow. I'm thinking Kyler Murray is probably the best way to go, assuming Devontae Adams is out, just so we have that value wide receiver for the Packers. Then we're going to throw in Aaron Rodgers in the flex spot, so we got both quarterbacks locked up, and we still have over $5,000 left per player, which is easily doable on this slate. And then moving on to running backs, we'll start with the Packers group here, which consists of Aaron Jones at $9,000, AJ Dillon at only $1,400, and Kylan Hill at $200. Looking at snap distributions last week, Aaron Jones about 3/4 of the snaps, AJ Dillon around 25%, and Kylan Hill came in below 10%. So it's basically the Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon show. Start with Jones here first, $9,000, bit of a steep price point. I would say the matchup is very good versus the Cardinals, 8th DVA versus the run, and only 6 fewest points being into the running back position. But the big thing here is, without Devontae Adams, without Allen Lazard, the targets have to go somewhere. Aaron Jones is using the passing game. He does have a 13% target share in the season and seeing 4 targets per game. Would not be surprised to see 5+ in this game for Aaron Jones. And, those kind of receptions rack up points quite quickly on a PPR scoring site like DraftKings. So don't think Aaron Jones is a bad play whatsoever, especially with those guys being out. I will say Allen Lazard is one of the better run blocking wide receivers out there, so that could hurt the run game for Aaron Jones. But if he's just involved in the passing game, I think that's just fine. Maybe he can be like a DeAndre Swift out there, and if that's the case, I will gladly pay $9,000 for Jones. As for AJ Dillon, only $1,400. He gets a decent amount of volume for his price tag. He's sitting around 7.5 carries per game. We saw him up to 15 carries in one game this season. Probably not going to happen here versus Arizona, but for only $1,400, if he happens to fall into the end zone and he gets like 20 to 30 yards, that's not a bad day at only $1,400, so he's definitely on my radar. Then Kylan Hill, can't really see myself playing much of him whatsoever, maybe like a 5% max and 150 lineups, but if you're building 1 or 3, don't see where I'd be getting to Kylan Hill in this slate. As for the Arizona Cardinals, we have James Conner and Chase Edmonds. Conner saw about 30% of the snaps last week, Edmonds around 70%. I do find it quite interesting that Edmonds is cheaper than James Conner here, because Edmonds is definitely the one you'd want. My projections would agree. He's been better this year. He's getting less rushing attempts, which maybe that's why DraftKings did, just under 10, but James Conner's only at 12.7 here, and he's using the passing game too. Edmonds is seeing over 4.5 targets per game, meanwhile James Conner is seeing less than a target per game. We're talking a 15.5% target share and a 24% weight opportunity share, and this is a pretty good matchup versus the Packers. They are 30th DVA versus the run, and they really haven't been that great versus running backs for a couple years now. So while James Conner will get volume, he'll probably steal a touchdown, which is going to be quite annoying. I'm not going to fade Conner or anything. I'm still going to have James Conner. I'm just saying if I had to pick between the two, I think it's definitely going to be Edmonds for me, especially if you have a lot of Kyler Murray in the captain spot. You can roster Chase Edmonds alongside him because correlation-wise it's fine because he's going to get targeted in the passing game. So moving back to our lineup, we have about $5,000 left per player. And what we could do is we could probably plug in both RB1s for each team here, which maybe we could change at the end if we have some extra salary left, but I just want to see what this looks like. So if we throw in Aaron Jones at $9,000, and we throw in Chase Edmonds here at $7,000, that's $2,300 left for the last 2 spots, which is possible. I might leave Chase Edmonds out for right now. We'll see if he fits later on after we talk about wide receivers and tight ends and defenses and kickers and all that fun stuff. So for right now, let's just leave in Aaron Jones, and then we'll talk about wide receivers. And we'll start with the Cardinals group here first because there's a lot of mouths to feed. We have DeAndre Hopkins at $10,600, Christian Kirk at $7,200, AJ Green at $6,800, and Rondale Moore here at $4,800. There's a couple guys that can get mixed in and out, but those are pretty much the big 4 here. Looking at snaps last week, Hopkins and AJ Green led the team with around 87% of the snaps, Christian Kirk just over 70%, and Rondale Moore over 50%. And look at the target distribution so far this season. They're all kind of close to each other. Now, the only difference is the market share in teams' air yards, where Rondale Moore is being used as a real short yardage guy that can make plays, just get him the ball in open space and try to let him do some damage. But DeAndre Hopkins, 22% target share, about 6.5 targets per game. Christian Kirk just over 5 targets with a 16.9% target share. AJ Green, 16.5% target share, 5 targets per game. All have similar market share to the team's air yards, besides Rondale Moore, like I just talked about, close to 4.5 targets per game with only a 4% market share in the team's air yards and an ADOT of 2.2. So really, who do we want to go with? Well, I think it just really depends on what kind of roster construction you're looking for. Because obviously, if you have the money for Hopkins, I want Hopkins. He is currently questionable for this game. He's expected to play. Just got that alert about 10 minutes ago. So it should be all systems good to go there. He's averaging a touchdown per game this year. He's been doing well the past couple of weeks. Hard not to like Hopkins here. Green Bay, I would say they're tougher versus the pass than they are versus the run, but they're still 19th DVA versus the pass this season. allowing the 7 fewest points per game to the wide receiver position. Kyler Murray's going to be able to get these guys the ball. They're all going to be fine. Yardage-wise, they're not really killing it, but it's just because they're all spread out. 60, 58, 50, 43 for more. Like, it's really hard to pick between all of these wide receivers. I would say Christian Kirk looks pretty good at $7,200. He's been good this year, but so does AJ Green and Rondale Moore. While he's not really used down the field, I mean, PPR sites like DraftKings just getting short yardage catches and then making things work with his playmaking ability is definitely enticing as well. So I would say just go with whoever fits your lineup the best, really. And that's kind of the only thing that separates all these guys, besides Hopkins, because he's in a tier of his own. And moving on to the Packers, which is definitely the biggest question mark in this game. So pretty much, I think it's a given that no Devontae Adams. That's not 100% confirmed. I just don't see how he's going to be able to play. And no Allen Lazard. So that leaves us with last week. If we didn't have MVS, I would have left you with only Equanimeous St. Brown and Randall Cobb and Amari Rodgers. Now we have MVS more than likely going to be activated for this game. He's expected to play, so you have to throw him back into the mix. But looking at snaps last week, obviously Allen Lazard and Devontae Adams played the majority of the snaps. But after that, Randall Cobb just played on over 60% of the snaps. Equanimeous St. Brown just under 30%. Then Amari Rodgers got in there close to 10% of these snaps. So it's all going to be mixed around a little bit. The two guys I prefer the most, assuming the big dogs are out, are Randall Cobb and St. Brown. MVS is a good down the field threat, although it seems like he drops half the balls that are thrown his way. I have bad experiences rostering MVS, although I think it's worked out like maybe once or twice. But St. Brown, Randall Cobb, the guys I like the most, and they're both pretty cheap. Cobb, I'd say he's the safest bet for volume. He's my highest predicted receiver currently. And then St. Brown, I mean, $600. It's really hard to beat for a guy that's going to be in the field. So then moving over to our lineup, we got 3 spots left, just about $4,000 left per player. We're going to plug in some cheap wide receivers to pair up with our Aaron Rodgers in the flex spot here. So Randall Cobb, like I said, is probably my favorite of this bunch. It's going to be a bit of a question mark where the targets are going to completely go the most, but I mean, I would say Randall Cobb is probably your safest bet because he has the most chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. So we'll plug him in, and then we'll plug in St. Brown at $600 just to get us all that extra salary in our lineup, because that's going to give us close to, like I said, yeah, nearly $7,500 if we plug in St. Brown. If you want to go the MVS route, assuming he gets activated, leaves you have $4,200 left where you could play like a kicker or a Matt Prater, which is fine too. You don't have to go St. Brown, but just a couple ways you can go. But for right now, we're going to plug in St. Brown. Then moving on to the tight end position, we'll start with the Packers first. And it's basically a two-man show of Robert Tonyan and Mercedes Lewis in the passing game. Then DeGara, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. He also plays a little bit, 20% of the snaps, but he's not really someone you can count on in the passing game whatsoever. He has 0.33 targets per game this year with a 1% target share. Meanwhile, Robert Tonyan played on 60% of the snaps last week. Also got into the end zone, 11.5% target share. Mercedes Lewis, about 1.5 targets per game on around a 4.5% target share. Now, Robert Tonyan, he is a very touchdown-dependent tight end. He's not going to get there on yards. He's only averaging 22 receiving yards per game. I will say with no Adams, it's definitely a boost to him. And I guess Mercedes Lewis as well, only $1,000. I think these guys are both fine, cheap options. Mercedes Lewis is more of a punt option that you hope catches a touchdown, because if he does not catch a touchdown, more than likely he's not going to be in the optimal lineup. Both guys are fine. It's just as, well, I guess Robert Tonyan's not a cheap play, but more of a cheapish / mid-range play if you hope he gets into the end zone. Same goes for Mercedes Lewis, although it's not much of a cap hit. Then as for the Cardinals, they lost Max Williams to Zach Ertz. They just traded for him. He stepped in as the tight end 1 in this offense, had 5 targets last week, 3 catches, got into the end zone. I think he would have had 2 touchdowns, but I believe he fumbled on the 1-yard line, if I remember correctly. I think he was kind of diving into the end zone. Have to correct me if I'm wrong. I think I remember seeing that on Red Zone. But his numbers this year are basically looking at the Eagles' numbers, so that's out the window. But he's definitely going to be involved in this offense, and after another week of being there, learning the playbook more, practice, should be even more involved in this offense. So I think Zach Ertz is totally in play at $6,200. Feels a bit expensive, to be honest, but he's definitely playable. There's a lot of mouths to feed in Arizona. And as for the defenses, you guys know my stance on these guys. I typically go underweight to the field, and I really don't put them in the captain spot, usually like a max of 1 to 2%. Even in the Saints and Seahawks game, where I mean, it was probably a good spot to play defenses, I think I put a max of like 2 to 3% in the captain spot. I was projecting them for around 4 to 5%, so I still was planning on being underweight there. Even in the rainstorm for the 49ers and Colts game, I put like a 1 to 2% max to the defenses. And now with a 50.5 point over-under, I'll probably just not captain any defenses or even kickers, just kind of spooling that for the next spot here. But don't really have any interest in either. I mean, I know they're both cheap, but still, I don't want to use a defense versus Aaron Rodgers. I don't really want to use a defense versus the Cardinals offense. Then as for the kickers, they're fine value plays. They have high floors but pretty low ceilings, so I think they're fine in cash games, but I tend to go a little bit underweight in tournaments. If they kick a bunch of field goals, well, I guess I'll take the L there. Not saying I fade kickers completely, but I'm talking like a 1 to 2% max in the captain spot and usually like a 20-ish% max in the flex spot for me. So then moving back to our lineup, we have $7,400 left, which we could use a couple of guys here. I believe we had Chase Edmonds in earlier, but I took him out to see if he fit at the end. He does if you want to go that route, and he does correlate fine with Kyler Murray. Not as much as he would with Christian Kirk, though, so if you want to go the Christian Kirk route, I don't think that's a bad looking lineup. So you have Kyler Murray at the captain, Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Randall Cobb, Equanimeous St. Brown, then Christian Kirk, just as your pairing option with Kyler Murray. If you want to go Chase Edmonds, that's totally fine. Or you could go with AJ Green. He fits there, even Zach Ertz. So really, there's a lot of ways you can go just with this specific build. Like I said, if you want to take out St. Brown, go with MVS. You could throw in a kicker. Or if you want to go cheap in the captain spot, which I will have some lineups like this, if you put Cobb in the captain spot on this slate, it really opens up a lot in your lineup. Just plugging them in here, that leaves us around $8,000 left per player. We can probably, obviously, fit Kyler Murray in. I would like to be able to fit DeAndre Hopkins in. At least it's $1,600 left, and with all the value we have, that's totally fine. You could use AJ Dillon here at $1,400, Mercedes Lewis, St. Brown. Let you guys use your imagination, but definitely some fun ways to go on this slate. It should be a very exciting game. I'm definitely looking forward to watching it. But with that being said, that'll be pretty much it for the video. So I hope it was helpful, and if it was, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet already. If you want to take that one step further, become an official member over on Patreon. Link is down below in the description for that. You can find all the spreadsheets, optimizers, ownership projections, and all that fun stuff. And don't forget, this video was sponsored by PrizePicks, just you versus the projections. And as of right now, if you're a new signer over there, you can get a free money bonus, instant deposit match up to $100 when you use code CPEN and tell them I sent you. That'll be it. I will stop rambling, and I hope you guys enjoyed the game tonight. I wish you all the best of luck.